What if Superman was missing, and the only man that could solve that is Batman? And what if Batman became Superman for this? Well, today we're going to be covering the Batman Fortress storyline, explaining both of those questions. And this is one of our full stories. We're a Comicstorian, we take comic books, we turn them into audio drama so you know what to add to your collection. And today we're going to be bringing you Batman Fortress 1 through 6. If you enjoy this type of content, consider supporting us over at our Patreon. But let's get into the story. The lights in Gotham City have gone out, which means that it doesn't take long before criminals decide that it's time to break into Wayne Manor. As the goons make their way through the halls, one finds a pearl necklace on the statue of Martha Wayne. He reaches for it before a voice calls out to him from the darkness. "Careful with those. They belong to my mother," Bruce says as he steps out of the darkness. One of the thugs tries to take him down, but Bruce ducks under the clumsy blow, knocking him out with one punch. "Tell me you're smarter than that guy," Bruce says as he looks at the other one. The goon raises a gun, but is quickly taken out by Alfred from behind. "Still got it, Alfred," Bruce says with a small smile before asking his faithful friend to leave the goons in the safe room until the police can come. Alfred nods but informs Bruce that things are much worse than a citywide blackout. Meanwhile, atop the GCPD, Gordon and Bullock are overseeing a few uniforms hooking up car batteries to the bat signal. Bullock isn't happy about taking some of their cars off the streets, but Gordon doesn't like the idea that his people are out there anyway, not with radios down and no way to call for backup. "Think we got it, Chief," one of the uniforms state, and Gordon looks into the sky. "Light it up." The bat signal shines into the darkness of Gotham's sky, offering both hope and fear to those in the city. "You think he'll show?" one of the uniforms asks nicely, and Gordon nods his head. "Well, he does like the dark. All we can do is hope, now more than ever." Back in the Batcave, Alfred and Bruce watch the feeds from their only remaining satellite. Alfred explaining that the blackout must have taken a hold of the entire world, and that social unrest has already begun. 7 billion people without power, and unable to communicate. This is only going to get worse. We need to get to the bottom of this, fast, Batman says, and he looks at Alfred. "You said Metropolis was in the dark too. Any sign of Boy Scout?" But Alfred informs him that their sensors cannot find any trace of Superman, which shocks Batman, and he asks Alfred to send out a message to the League to get ready to fight whatever this is. He then turns back to the screens. "Clark, where the hell are you?" Later, he joins Gordon on the rooftop of the GCPD. "Busy night." "You don't know the half of it," Gordon tells him, informing Batman that their radios and 911 are down. "What's the other half?" Batman asks, and Gordon sighs, telling him that there has been a mass breakout at Arkham Asylum. "You know those electric locks that we fitted last year? Every one of them has been popped open when they lost power." Batman nods, handing Gordon some instructions that explain how to get their radios past whatever is jamming them. "It'll be patchy, but good enough. And I have a dispatch monitor for the second frequency. That'll be me. I'll call them in as I bag them," Batman says as he leaps off into the night. He moves through the city, watching as the looting begins and stopping those that would be terrorizing others with fear. Penguin is the first that he comes across, who uses the darkness to drown those who stood against his operations. But Batman takes him down, saving the drowning woman. The Joker is next, having stolen a school bus of children who are just trying to get home. But when the Joker looks up, Batman stands in his headlights. Joker hits the gas, and Batman simply raises his 1 million lumen flashlight, blinding the Joker. Joker swerves off the road and into the guardrail, and as the bus hangs precariously off the Gotham Bridge, Batman helps the children out the back. Joker hangs on barely in the front of the bus, and for a brief moment, Batman thinks about letting him fall. But he knows that he can never explain it to the children that were watching them. So he catches the Joker and merely calls it in. The night continues. Batman saves dozens of others before the sun finally comes up, bringing sanity back to the city. He then returns to the Batcave, where Alfred explains that the sensor has detected a UFO hovering in the lower atmosphere over the Indian Ocean. That their sensors have also picked up that the craft is broadcasting the signal that is causing the global blackout and communications disruption. So Batman only has one thought. That thing is a warship. The disruption may be a prelude to an attack, paralyzing our defenses, softening us up in advance of God only knows what. Alfred agrees. In the absence of any further data, it would seem the most coherent theory at this stage. But there's still no word from Superman. So Batman turns to leave, knowing that he has no other choice, as he heads to join the rest of the Justice League. "They declared war when they shut down our planet. Now we're gonna hit back. Hard." At the Justice League emergency headquarters, the League gathers around the meeting table as Batman explains everything that he's discovered, including the fact that Superman is missing. Yeah, Jessica's not here either, Barry points out, and they begin to argue about what they should do, but Batman stomps them. Enough. Every minute that we allow this thing to continue starving the Earth of power, people are dying. Wonder Woman nods as she informs them that the combined air forces of several countries are planning to strike on the craft, and that the League will be joining them. Batman nods as he looks at the group. Pre-flight prep at 15. Let's get this done. So a short time later, the massive air wing flies over the Indian Ocean with the Justice League out front. Strike leader to all wings. We have special guests alongside us today. Can't say I've ever flown with a bat before, but it's an honor to have you with us, the flight leader says over the comms, and Batman tips a wing to him with the bat wing. Just here to help, Major. The fighter wings quickly come into range of the strange alien aircraft and they open fire, but their missiles bounce off the ship. Having no effect and ignoring Batman's advice, the fighter wings begin to open fire with their machine guns, but it also has no effect. But the ship suddenly seems to launch strange glowing drones that zip around, cutting through the fighter jets like they're nothing. Flash begins to run along the flying ruins of dozens of fighters. This might be a good time to remind you guys that I can't fly, he shouts over the radio, managing to leap onto the Batwing. Aboard the invisible jet, Arthur is asking Diana to get close to the ship, and he leaps off of the plane just as the drone rips through its wing. With a bellow of rage, he buries his trident into the ship's hull, but is shocked as it absorbs both him and the weapon. Arthur's in trouble, Barry shouts to Batman. I see. Stick to the plan. He asks Barry to begin vibrating at super speed and try to punch a hole through the ship's hull. You want me to turn into a human missile? Barry asks in shock. What the hell? I'll give it a shot, he shouts to Batman. And the rest of the League gathers around the Batwing as they barrel towards the alien ship, preparing to make their final assault. Let's do this together, Batman shouts as Jean, Hawkman, and Cyborg provide covering fire, and the Flash begins to vibrate until he launches himself into the ship. But the drones lash out at them, knocking him out of the sky, cutting through the Batwing. As Batman begins to plummet towards the ocean below, he watches as Diana, Jean, and Hawkman are all absorbed into the alien craft. Cyborg continues to fight until he's suddenly cut in half, his eyes widening in shock as he begins to fall. Later, aboard the USS Gerald Ford, the ship's captain is giving Batman the bad news. They managed to save Barry, but his leg is broken and the Flash is out of commission. They were able to round up Cyborg's remains, but they're unable to stabilize him and he doesn't have long. Left alone, Batman steps over to his friend. Victor, he says softly. He tells Victor to rest, but Cyborg knows that he doesn't have a lot of time. He quickly explains to Batman that he managed to scan the ship, that it's made up of a combination of alien technology, including Kryptonian. And then he begins to fade, looking up to Batman. If anyone can save our friends, this planet, it's you, he gasps, passing away. Much later, Batman returns to the Batcave and Alfred is shocked by Bruce's appearance. He suggests that he should rest up before trying to come up with a new plan, but Batman turns glaring at him and Alfred sighs. I'm certainly no stranger to that look. I'll bring down some coffee and get you something to eat, he says before leaving Bruce alone. Bruce finally sighs, placing the case that he's been holding on the counter, and with another sigh, he clicks the locks, opening it, revealing Cyborg's severed head. Sorry about this, my friend, but you and I have work to do. Meanwhile, over in Smallville, a golden egg that matches the massive ship lands in the cornfields outside of the former Kent farm. 3 aliens get out following the unique signature of the last son of Krypton, but they find the house is only full of moving boxes. A man comes in with his family demanding to know what the aliens are doing. We come in peace, one named Vigil says, and another glares at the humans. As long as you answer our questions, where is the Kryptonian? She shouts. The family doesn't understand why they're looking for Superman, but they also don't know where he is. We just moved in a few days ago, the father says, and Vigil nods, agreeing to leave. I advise you do the same. This place has been tainted by his presence. It must now be cleansed. Moments later, the 3 aliens return to their ship as the farm is burning behind them. Back in the Batcave, Bruce is going through the data that Cyborg collected, informing Alfred that the alien craft is made up of a combination of several different alien technologies. Whoever these aliens are, they aren't Kryptonians, but they've acquired Kryptonian tech somehow and assimilated it into their own, augmented it. Batman explains to Alfred, who is fascinated by the idea. Bruce drinks from his coffee cup. Clark's the key to all of this, one way or another. Bruce explains, but he also tells Alfred that there is still no sign of Superman, and he doesn't understand why he would disappear right before the invasion. He stands trying to rub exhaustion out of his eyes, and Alfred looks at him with concern. "Sir, I really must insist that you get some sleep. Please don't make me change the Wi-Fi password." Bruce finally agrees and tells him that he must make an intergalactic call first. So within moments, his message is received by the Guardians of Oa, who inform him that the Green Lanterns will not be aiding Earth in this endeavor. "Earth is hardly defenseless. What about your Kryptonian?" the Guardians ask, and Batman is shocked. "Wait, do you know something about this?" The Guardians inform him that due to intergalactic politics, they are unable to help, and Batman glares at them angrily. "I should have known. I always suspected that you people were a bunch of bureaucrats, much more interested in your rules and regulations than doing what's right." But the Guardians cut off his message, and he stands alone in the Batcave, defeated. "No luck, sir," Alfred says as he joins him, and Bruce shakes his head, angry and shocked by what he has to do now. Who he has to go to for help. The only man smart enough to help him solve this project. "Sir, surely you're not proposing," Alfred begins, but Bruce interrupts him. "I don't like it either, Alfred, but desperate times call for desperate measures." Meanwhile, the trio of aliens have arrived in Metropolis following Superman's signature to the Daily Planet, where they are greeted by a shotgun-toting Perry White. The aliens suggest that Superman's signature matches that of Clark Kent, and Perry begins to laugh. The aliens all sigh with exasperation. "I'll ask again, where is he?" Vigil demands, and Perry chews on his cigar as he explains that Clark took all of his vacation time a few days ago, but he doesn't know where he is. The aliens turn to leave, and Perry raises the shotgun. "Kent's got nothing to do with this, and he's my second best reporter. I'll be damned if I'm gonna let you." But the alien known as Atlantis raises their hand, and Perry suddenly dissolves into ash before their eyes. They leave him there as they turn and walk away. Meanwhile, Batman has discovered the location of the President of the United States. He slips inside the CIA black site in Australia, where he discovers that the President is having a meeting with his cabinet. The guards try to stop Batman, but of course, Batman moves through them in seconds. The rest of the Secret Service stand preparing to fire, but President Lex Luthor raises his hand. "Stand down, we know each other, Luthor." And Lex smiles wider. "Can't bring yourself to say Mr. President, can you?" he says as he leads Batman into the makeshift Oval Office that he has built on the black site. Lex sits at his desk as Batman fills him in on everything that has happened. "What's your plan?" "Whoever these aliens are, they're equipped with extremely advanced technology. We have a chance in hell against it, unless we get our hands on some Kryptonian tech of our own." Lex raises an eyebrow and leans in, very intrigued. "There's only one place on this planet that has what we need, but we know where it is, and we know that he's not home." Lex realizes that Batman is speaking of Superman's Fortress of Solitude. He stands up, offering his hand as an agreement. "You know, I never thought I'd see the day that the two of us are teaming up on anything. But you had me at, let's go rob Superman's house," he says with a big smile. Batman and Lex gather at the Arctic Circle, joined by the best scientific minds that Lex could find, and his military detachment. Batman thanks him, but reminds him that none of the military will be allowed to step foot inside of the fortress, and if Lex tries to take anything, even with the idea of helping the United States, they're going to have an issue. "I'm wounded by the suggestion that I'd even consider something like that. This is my wounded face," Lex says with a mocked expression of shock. The two of them walk across the frozen tundra until they crest the hill. Both are shocked by the large crate that lays before them. Well, that is unexpected. Unless there's a really good cloaking field, the Fortress of Solitude appears to have disappeared. Batman reaches for the tech that they've brought, hoping to possibly capture a signal that will show them where Superman and the fortress have gone. But everyone looks up as the trio of aliens approaches them, their egg-shaped ship having landed nearby. Lex smiles, stepping forward with outstretched arms. "Hi, welcome to Earth. No need to say take me to your leader. I'm right here." Vigil steps forward. "We mean no harm to your planet or your people," he says, but Batman has its doubts. "It's a little late for that. People are suffering and dying in numbers, all over the world." Vigil explains that they will leave, and the planet will be restored after their mission is complete. "You're looking for Kal-El. Why? What's so important that you'd cause this much damage to find him?" Vigil explains that Superman is not who they think he is, that he can't be trusted. Batman asks them to explain further, but Lex hits his radio, ordering his sniper to take the shot. No! Batman shouts, but the round cracks out, deflecting off of Vigil's armor, blowing the alien known as Keth's head off. Atlantis raises their arms, and the ground begins to tremble beneath the humans' feet. Batman and Lex manage to escape, jumping aboard the military helicopter to get away. But as Atlantis prepares to blow them out of the sky, Vigil stops him. Let them go. And they both turn to Keth, who is already healing and getting to his feet. Keth, did you acquire his biosignature? He asks, believing that Batman may lead them to Kal-El. Keth stands, his head wound completely healed. Isolated and registered. Batman, meanwhile, returns to the Batcave, not sure of what to do next. Alfred brings him a cup of tea, leaving him alone to think. Rough couple of days, the voice calls out, and Batman looks up in surprise, smiling. Well, I'll be damned. Dale, he says as he recognizes the rodent-like Green Lantern. The Lantern smiles at him as he explains that he doesn't care what the Guardians say. He isn't going to leave his friends on Earth in trouble. Plus, I've been to every sector of this galaxy, and Gotham is the only place where I've been able to find a decent slice. Batman thanks him for his help, as Dale explains that he only has his current charge in the ring, as he had to leave his battery on Oa so that no one would think that he snuck away. So what's the plan? What do you need from me? Dale asks, and Batman suddenly gets an idea, as Dale flies him outside of Nepal, where they enter the Oblivion Bar. The place is crowded with the mystical elements of the DC universe, and Batman isn't surprised to find Constantine playing Russian roulette in the corner. Dale finds himself a place at the bar while Batman is led to the back, where he is greeted by Detective Chimp. How are you, DC? Chimp smiles at him around his cigar. Never better. Living in a cave suits me nicely. Should have taken the tip from you a long time ago, he says, and Batman asks for the Chimp's help. But DC spends the next few minutes pointing out how the humans have messed up the planet, and being sent back to the Dark Ages might not be the worst of things. But Batman finally convinces him to help, and DC uses his tech and superior detective skills to discover that Superman has hidden the Fortress of Solitude in the Mariana Trench. Batman and Dale head back into the snow, with Dale reminding Batman that he doesn't have enough of a charge to protect them from that level of pressure under the ocean. Plus, they're going to have to put together a group to actually break into the Fortress of Solitude. You got any ideas? Dale asks him, and Batman smiles at his friend. Yeah, I've got a few ideas. So Batman first finds Jackson Hyde, who has found himself on Barbados, hitting on the tourists that were trapped there during the global blackout. Jackson Hyde's date is interrupted by the bigots, who are quickly swept under the ocean by Jackson's hydromancy powers. But his date is frightened by the display of power running off. Oh, come on! I didn't drown anyone! Those jerks are gonna wash up down the beach just fine. Jackson yells after the fleeing man, but that's when Batman and Dale step out of the shadows. Do all of your dates end this well? Batman asks, and Jackson looks at them both. I didn't know you had a pet. Dale doesn't find it funny, flying towards and getting into Jackson's face. You wanna go, fish boy? He growls, but Batman calls him off, telling Jackson about their plan to break into the fortress, letting him know about Aquaman's fate. Jackson finally agrees after realizing that it's the only way to save Arthur, who has treated him well even after he was exiled from Atlantis. I've always respected him. I just wish I had told him that, Jackson says, and Batman puts a hand on his shoulder. You still can, after we bring him home. Batman's next trip is to Star City, where he finds Amiko, the new Red Arrow, killing drug dealers and robbing them. She whirls around as Batman steps out of the shadows, threatening him with her bow. This suit can stop a bullet. Knock yourself out. Batman growls, but he tells her that he didn't come here to fight, explaining to her the mission. I need you for the job. I'm putting together a crew. He tells her, explaining that he heard about her breaking into Iron Heights to break out Oliver. You got me halfway there. For the other half, what's in it for me? She asks him, and Batman raises an eyebrow. Saving the world isn't gonna do it for you, I guess? She shakes her head. Not really. I like money. These arrows aren't cheap. So Batman sighs, offering her to pay her for her time. And she smiles. All right, where's the ride? Always wanted to see the Bat Car, or whatever you call it. Later, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, Jackson is keeping the U.S. submarine stable with his hydromancy so that it doesn't get crushed. On board, Batman walks into Lex's office and is shocked to see the president in a suit. You've got to be kidding me. He reminds Luthor that he won't be entering the Fortress of Solitude, and Luthor threatens to have the sub-captain turn the ship around. The fate of the world is at stake, the lives of countless innocent people. Surely that means more to you than one man's ego. Luthor looks at him. Remember who you're talking to, and ask yourself if you really want to play chicken with me over how much I care about the lives of countless innocent people, Luthor tells him. So Batman glares at him for a moment before finally relenting, and then reminds them that if he tries to steal anything from the fortress, I'll turn this trench into your tomb. Their conversation is then interrupted as Jackson comes over the radio, warning them that they're approaching the fortress. In a short time, the group is crossing through a tunnel that Jackson creates with his powers, allowing them to walk to the entrance of the fortress. Listen, I kinda have a thing for large expanses of water, so don't remind me how deep we are right now or anything like that, Emiko whispers to the group. Dale laughs, reminding her that if they put Mount Everest on the ground right now, the peak wouldn't even break the surface of the ocean. You're not helping, Emiko tells him with a glare. The group walks up to the entrance of the fortress, trying to figure out a way to open the doors that don't seem to have a lock or a doorknob. Maybe it responds to his unique signature, or he activates it with his heat signature, Batman ponders. But Lex doesn't think so, pointing out that everyone on Earth believes that Superman is incredibly intelligent since he has so much power. But Lex informs them that one of Superman's weaknesses is the fact that he just isn't that smart. It's purely a battle of wits, in which case I've already won, Lex says, using his suit's strength to push the door open. What did I tell you? Doesn't even have a lock on his front door, Lex says with a smile, and Dale looks at the group. Maybe this'll be easy, he says with a sneer, and Batman looks at them all before turning and walking inside. Maybe not. They enter the entrance hall of the fortress, and they're met by a crystalline guardian that attacks them. Emiko tries to hit it with her explosive arrows, but the weapons do nothing. Jackson tries to alter it with his powers, but is wrapped up by some sort of mummifying adhesive. Batman and Lex hit it with their flamethrowers, but the heat seems to have no effect, so Dale suddenly flies forward. You guys are lucky you brought me along, you know? Hey, Mr. Frosty, don't look up! The alien rodent shouts before dropping a 100-ton construct on the Guardian, smashing it. They say you can't learn anything from watching cartoons, Dale says with a smirk. Lex walks over to Jackson, using his suit's lasers to try and cut him free, but the wraps don't give. Some kind of Kryptonian textile, too dense for anything to penetrate, Lex tells Batman, and the Dark Knight grunts. For now, we press on. I'll carry him, Batman tells them, and they move into the next obstacle, a really heavy door. Lex believes that he can overclock his suit's power supply to lift the door long enough for Dale to wedge it open. It'll probably burn out my systems, but maybe I can do it, Lex says as he looks at Batman, and the Dark Knight nods. We don't have much time. Try it. Lex manages to lift the door, but his suit is smoking and frying at the same time. Dale manages to wedge it open, allowing the others to slip underneath, but his ring's power suddenly gives out. Luckily, Batman manages to grapple him and pull him through the doorway before it flattens him. So now Emiko steps forward, looking at the door that now traps them. So that's going to be another problem for us getting back out of here, right? She asks, and Batman continues forward. One thing at a time. Onward. They next arrive at a long chamber, where the floor is a massive pit with an entrance to the Phantom Zone below. The team is forced to use what little power Dale has left to float Emiko across so that she can fire an arrow and tie off a line, allowing them to cross over the pit quickly, though they're forced to leave Jackson tied up behind them. Batman is last. But as he nears the other side, the line gives way and he begins to fall into the pit. As Emiko is crossing to the edge, she shoots an arrow into Batman's shoulder, preventing him from falling into the bottomless pit that would make him fall into the Phantom Zone. After Batman is pulled back up, Emiko leans down, pulling the arrow free of his shoulder. I'm officially impressed, he tells her as he gets to his feet. You did good, kid. When we get back, we should talk. Been a while since someone's had my back out there, Batman tells her, and Lex walks up behind them. Might want to pass on that kid. His sidekicks have a way of winding up dead, Lex tells her. The group continues forward, finding themselves in another room, the doors sealing behind them, and the room suddenly begins to fill with salt water. Gloves are off now. We must be getting close, Batman growls, aware that the traps are becoming more lethal. The team tries to open the doors, but they're both sealed tight. Can't your suit's laser cut through? Batman asks, turning to Lex. The President of the United States shakes his head. We've burned out my power cell back there, Lex reminds him. The room continues to fill and the heroes can't find a way out. So Lex finally turns to Batman. Listen, I know you and me. We've had our differences over the years. Neither of us ever made it personal. But since this is probably the end for both of us, I just wanted to say, I've always hated your guts. Lex says with a smile and Batman nods. Right back at you. The room begins to fill and the heroes all begin to drown. But everything suddenly turns to steam and they drop to the floor. What the hell happened? Amiko asks. And they all look up to see Jackson Hyde entering the room. Been doing that since I was a kid. First trick my mom taught me. Jackson tells Batman as a way of explanation. The second door is now unlocked and the team continues to press on, finding themselves in a room filled with small portals to the Phantom Zone with no way of knowing the proper exit. Amiko suggests they tie a rope and step through the doorways until they find the right way out. But Lex points out that they don't know the gravity or the radiation levels on the other side of the doors. Okay then, Mr. Super Genius, tell us which door is the right one, Amiko asks, and Lex pauses for a moment before finally turning back to the group. I don't know, he finally admits. But the conversation is interrupted by growling, and the noise sounds menacing until they discover it's Krypto, Superman's dog stepping around the corner. On top of everything else, he's got a guard dog? Amiko asks as she draws another arrow. But the super dog hits the arrow with a blast of heat vision, melting it. Batman just smiles, pulling out a bacon strip and leaning down. Krypto, of course, accepts the snack and recognizes Batman, so he sits down wagging his tail. Oh yeah? You remember me? How you doing, pal? Can you help me out? Batman asks, petting the dog. Krypto turns, leading them through the right door, allowing them to enter the main chamber of the Fortress of Solitude finally. The group looks around at the crystal statues and remnants of Krypton that fill the room. Oh yeah, I think we've arrived, Dale says as they look around, and he flies into the air, finding that Superman has an Omnisource that allows him to recharge his ring. Batman isn't sure where to start, but Lex is, stepping forward, activating the Kryptonian crystal computer that sits in the middle of the chamber. A hologram shimmers to life, revealing the image of Jor-El. The heroes are shocked as Jor-El explains to his son that the House of El tried to spread Kryptonian supremacy throughout the universe, using their superior strength and technology to enslave countless worlds. Jor-El tried to fight against the oppression of his family with science to better existence, but the worlds fought back, destabilizing their son and destroying the planet of Krypton. This is the truth of Krypton. Jor-El sent his son away, hoping that the powers of the Yellow Sun would help give Kal-El the powers to create a better world and not become like his family's past. Lex turns to the group and the message ends. So Superman's family were war criminals? Oh man, this is almost too good to be true, he says with a sneer. Batman begins to argue with him, but Lex tells the Dark Knight that the American people have a right to know the truth about Superman's history. The two of them then continue to argue about the matter, but Batman points out that Superman isn't his family and all the good he's done for the people of Earth. It's Dale who finally interrupts as he motions to the pit in the middle of the chamber. The group of heroes stare down into that pit in surprise, finding Superman sitting in a stasis chamber. Well, no wonder my scans couldn't find him anywhere else but Earth. He never left. Lex is able to use the crystal computer to awaken Superman, and the hero opens his eyes as Batman is standing before him. Welcome back, Cal. You've got some explaining to do, Batman tells his friend, and Superman rises from the pit looking at the group. What are you doing here? How did you get past my security? Superman asks, also shocked to find Lex Luthor is there with them. Batman steps forward explaining what happened, asking Superman why he locked himself away when the Earth needed him. I had hoped it would never come to this. He explains that the aliens' technology is a match for his powers, and he had hoped by hiding himself away they would think that he left and leave Earth alone. It didn't work out that way. Their scans have disrupted global power and communications. They've sent our planet back into the Dark Ages, Batman tells Clark, and Clark nods, telling the heroes that he was always afraid that they would come for him. The crimes that my people committed, those are things that are not easily forgotten, Superman tells them, but Vigil calls from the entranceway. Or forgiven, she says, and the trio of aliens enters the room, thanking Batman for leading them to Superman. I didn't lead you anywhere. Vigil admits that they followed his biosignature and that they are here to bring Superman in, so that he can stand trial for his people's crimes. Over my dead body! Batman growls, but Vigil explains that they are here with full galactic authority, and if they don't return with Superman, the planet will merely be destroyed. Superman steps forward, telling them that he has tried to atone for his family's past, but Batman steps between his friend and the aliens. "He's one of us. He's my friend. Do you want him? Come and get him!" Batman growls, and the rest of the team stand ready to fight. But it's Lex who steps up, telling the trio of aliens that he is prepared to help them. He smiles, offering to take out Superman for them. "And how do you suppose to take me off the board, Luthor?" Superman asks, and Lex smiles, reaching into his pocket, pulling out a large chunk of kryptonite. "I almost hate to do this, but sometimes you gotta play the greatest hits," Lex tells him, and he holds it up, but it doesn't seem to affect Superman. Batman steps forward, telling Lex that he saw the kryptonite in his office and he switched it for a novelty gift, one that Superman gave him years ago. "Hope you don't mind me regifting it," Batman says to Superman, who just smiles. "Not at all." Lex looks down at the useless lump of rock in his hand. "Crap," he says simply. Vigil looks at Lex, shocked that he would betray his own team. "If there's one thing that I hate more than Kryptonians, it's those who would sell out their own kind for selfish greed." She holds up her power gauntlet, using it on Lex, who is suddenly folded into a tiny cube of metal and blood. Dale flies over to the Lex cube. "Well, that escalated quickly," he says, turning back to the aliens. "I'm tired of talking. We gotta do this or what?" The battle escalates quickly, with the trio firing at the heroes with their energy weapons. A hole is then ripped into the side of the fortress, and Jackson Hyde is forced to hold it back. Amiko is downed by an energy blast, and Batman rushes to her side, but it's Superman who finally flies over everyone. "Enough!" he bellows, landing in front of the aliens, offering to surrender in exchange for the protection of his friends and his planet. Batman walks over to his friend. "Cal, are you sure about this?" Superman nods. "The only alternative is my death or the planet's destruction," Cal reminds Batman. He turns back to the aliens, who inform him that as long as he has his powers, the Tribunal will always see him as a threat. But Superman then informs him that the Chamber was able to remove his powers, thus making him no threat to anyone. "Would your superiors be satisfied with that?" Vigil ponders it for a moment before responding. "I cannot speak for them. You would need to return with us to face the Tribunal. But such an act would certainly be taken into consideration." Batman places his hand on Superman's shoulder, promising to go with him. "Someone should be there to speak on your behalf, a friend." It's months later that Earth is returned to normal, and Clark was found not guilty by the Tribunal and allowed to return to Earth. But he is now powerless, living the life that he always wanted. A star reporter, married to Lois Lane. But Earth is not left without a protector. The same chamber that took away Superman's powers was able to give them to another. And it is now Batman who floats above the Earth, watching over it as he has never been able to before. But he doesn't intend to do things the same way as Superman. He can't have these powers and sit at the sidelines. To let humanity find its own way, he plans to step out of the shadows as Batman and lead humanity as it should be led. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, if you want to support us further, please consider joining us over at Patreon. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for your continued support, and I will see you next time right here at Comicstorian.